Good morning, members. I now call to order the meeting of the panel on public service. We have formed a quorum. Now, item 1 on the agenda. Information papers issued since the last regular meeting on the 21st of April 2017. Please take a look of paper CB bracket 4 912/16-17 bracket 01, which carries the admin's response to the submission from the Government Amenity Management Supervisors General Union regarding the implementation of 5-day week in the government. Second paper, CB bracket 4 1019/16-17 bracket 01, letter dated the 4th of May 2017 from Hon LAM Cheuk-ting concerning the meal break arrangement for the ambulance grade in the Fire Services Department. Please note the information papers. Item 2, date of the next meeting and items for discussion. So, members, please refer to... Yes, let me finish my sentence. Paper CB bracket 4 991/16-17 bracket 01, which is the list of outstanding items for discussion, as well as CB bracket 2 991/16-17 bracket 02, list of follow-up actions. Yes, Dr. N. Chang, last month we gave you a letter inviting you to have a discussion about the possible offense of insulting public officers. I think we've been told that we haven't got any new progress. I agree it takes time to study the matter if we are to create such an offense. While I agree that there is no urgency, I suggest that it should be included on the list of outstanding items for discussion, so that one day we'll get to a discussion, so that we share our concerns and we know about the status quo. So can it be included in the list of outstanding items for discussion? Thank you. And yes, indeed, it can be included on the list. I've also got a proposal to include an item in the list of outstanding items that public officers insulting the citizens. I think, generally speaking, both items are sort of taken together. I think what is important is to have information from the administration or a new direction to be proposed by the administration. But indeed, it can be included on the list of outstanding items. Thank you. Just now, I referred to the letter from Hon LAM Cheuk-ting concerning the meal break arrangement for the ambulance grade in the Fire Services Department. Well, in fact, it can be subsumed under one of the items on the list of outstanding items. So when we reach that item, we will take into account Lam Cheuk-ting's letter. And Jen, some medical doctors have also complained that their working hours are exceedingly long. Undeniably, we have got more and more medical incidents recently. Would it be due to the long working hours and thus they have overlooked certain things, there is negligence? So just wonder if this should be taken up here or by the panel on health services. Now, for our panel, we'll also look at the matters pertaining to staff in subvented organizations. Well, I think you should become the chair of the panel on education and risk and save our education. Well, the majority of the staff members in the healthcare sector are employed by the hospital authority, so I think it's better to have it discussed by the panel on health services. But what about subvented organization staff members? I will invite the staff members to check with the health services panel to see if they will take it up. If not, then I think we can take it up. To me, as to which panel should discuss the matter, it depends on which panel is interested in the matter. We can also refer our points to that panel. I don't mind, but I'm afraid that they mind. Well, we can consult the views first. Sure, thank you. All right, so please take a look of the date of the next meeting as well as items for discussion. We have 2 items: employment of persons with disabilities in the civil service as well as the 2017-2018 civil service pay adjustment. The date will be the 19th of June, 10:45 a.m. No questions? Then please endorse it. Thank you. Item 3 then. An overview of the civil service establishment, strength, retirement, resignation, age profile, and gender profile. Please invite the public officers to join us. Paper for CB4 991/16-17 03 as well as paper CB4 991/16-17 04. Good morning. I'd like to give the floor to the Secretary. Sorry, Chair, give me a minute. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. In order to let members have a better overview of the civil service, every year we come to the panel to give you a report on the establishment strength, etc. The details have been set out in the paper submitted to you. At this moment, I just want to highlight a few points. First of all, in order to deliver new initiatives and enhanced services, in the year 2017-18, I think you will recall that we are going to increase the establishment by 3,378, an increase of 1.9% when compared with the revised estimates for the year 2016-17, an increase of 400. And then another matter of concern to you is that in relation to the NCSC staff, as I have said, more than 90% of such posts have been taken up by those who have 5 years or more experience in such posts. And then for the directorate grade staff, again, they are maintained at a relatively low percentage. As at the 31st of March 2016, when we have over 170,000 civil servants, there were only 1,452, accounting for less than 1% of the directorate grade staff. As to whether we are trying to increase the number of directorate grade staff members at the expense of the non-directorate grade staff members, you can see that in fact they do have a heavy workload when it comes to policy coordination. And then a word on wastage. In 2015-16, 7,766 civil servants left the civil service. You may think that this is a big number, but then 80% of them were retirees. As we have said, we are seeing the peak of retirement among civil servants. So this is what we call natural wastage. We'll continue to have timely recruitment exercises. We're also watching the promotion, selection, and other planning matters so as to fill the vacancies. You may want to refer to paragraph 7 of our paper. But then, with more new blood joining the civil service, for those aged 20 to 29, in recent years, we have seen an increasing trend. Again, this is a good sign because if the age profile is getting younger, they will certainly be more sort of hardworking, and we refer to this matter in paragraph 15. And then the resignation rate for the past 5 years has always been maintained between 0.55 and 0.65%. It was 0.65% in the year 2015-16. It is a low figure. And then among the 0.65% of those who resigned, about 60% of them left the service during the probation period. Mr. Chairman, I think I can say that it is reflecting two factors. First of all, our labor market remains tight. The unemployment rate is low. We have almost achieved full employment. Therefore, candidates or staff members have more choices. And as I have said, most of the new recruits are in the age band of 20 to 29 for their own career development and their life planning. Of course, there may be some changes during their probation period, so please refer to paragraphs 11 and 12. As to the fifth point that we are including here, it is a new area suggested by Amenity. For the first time, we've included the gender profile in the report, and I hope Emily Lau would be watching this, and I'm sure she'll be glad for this information. For the gender profile, we are getting a more and more even distribution.
In the 15 years from 0102 to 2015-2016, the proportion of female civil servants has increased from 33% to 37%. For directorate, females directorate officers, 0102, 24%. In 2015-2016 is about 35%, a marked increase. If we look at the civilian grades, female directorate officers in 2015-2016 accounted for 37% of the total, which is higher than the civil service average. It was 26% 15 years ago, an increase of 11 percentage points. That's almost a 50% increase. In my grade, administrative officer, among the 8 permanent secretary ranked at D8, 8 of them are female, or 42%. So the distribution is even, more or less even. And also, we have set out in paragraph 18 that the measures have been launched to allow departments to retain officers, and I'm talking about extending the retirement age and other measures to tie in. In the Civil Service Bureau, we have also stepped up our training and development efforts to train up new talents to take up greater duties. That's in paragraphs 20 and 21. That's all for my brief introduction. We'll be happy to take questions. All right. This is a Q&A session. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Thank you, Chairman. As the Secretary has said, that there's an increase in the establishment of civil service, which is welcome. I would like to know more about a few matters. First, Annex A. That's the comparison of the establishment of the age profile of the different bands of civil service. Do you have the exact figures of officers? And in terms of the age profile, in paragraph 13 of paper, in 2015-2016, in the age group 50 to 59, the ratio was 34%. So in 5 or 10 years time, they are going to retire. It's going to be a high percentage of very experienced civil service. Has the government assessed the implications of such a situation? And this time, we have been given the information on gender profile, especially that we are impressed by the situation in respect of civilian grades. Is it because there are fewer male civil servants joining the service? Secretary, 3 questions. Mr. Poon, I think of course I can give you the exact figures, but in the annex you can see the approximate numbers. Although we haven't given you the exact figures, we can supplement with additional information after the meeting. But if you want to get some ballpark figures, you can refer to the left-hand side of the chart. In the 1980s, there was a large-scale expansion of the civil service, and that's the reason why those who joined in the 1980s, myself included, and they will be retiring in the coming years. That's the legacy of what we did in the 1980s, and also in the towards the end of 1990s and the beginning of the new millennium, because of the poor economic situation, for some time we froze the establishment of or the numbers of civil servants. For 6 years we did not recruit new blood, so there was no new entrants. As a result, the ratio, the gender ratio, the gender profile increased. And on manpower, you know that the wastage rate is low, and after gaining some experience, on average, it takes 14 years to promote to the next higher rank. So for most grades, most officers, there are people who can take on the duties in the next higher rank. As we set out in paragraph 20 and 21, we have attached importance to the training of officers with potential to take up senior management duties. We believe such efforts would bear fruit directly. And if there are succession issues which are not satisfactory, then we need to do something else. That's why we allow departments to retain retiring officers for a short time so as to make succession more effective. On gender or female officers, I have looked into the work of different recruitment panels. I think that this situation reflects the community's bigger picture, and that is the labor participation rate of women has risen, and women now have a higher educational attainment levels. And let me finish my response with the remaining minute. And women are better in are performing better in posts where communication skills are required. We have more more needs nowadays to have people explain government policies to the public, and that may have an impact on the gender ratio and why there are higher gender ratio for women. Mr. Jeremy Tam, I want to ask some questions about retirement and promotion. In paragraph 10, you said then in 2028, 2029, the ratio would drop to 3.2%. I'm talking about retirement. When there are fewer retirees, unless you create new posts, then it means the promotion prospects are getting worse. You said it takes 14 years to promote to the next rank. Are you talking about?
同埋如果喺咁嘅情況之下，即係
Talking about civil servants or NCSC staff, the ratio is 4.2%. It would be just 3% in the future. How would that impact on the 14-year promotion time frame? Yeah, no, you know, in the non-government sector, it would be rare to promote an employee only once in 14 years. Of course, for junior ranks, it's easier than senior ranks, and the time taken will be longer for promotion to senior ranks. First of all, 14 years is just the average, not the norm for every grade. Secondly, there is no direct relationship with NCSC's staff. For NCSC staff, what they want is to join the civil service. Because for NCSC staff, there's no promotion prospects, not even once in 14 years. So the chairman and what members would like to see is that for those NCSC staff who are performing and who are working in departments where their posts are needed, they will be recruited. They will join the civil service. And also because of the changes in the natural wastage, or would promotion prospects be affected? To me, the important thing is to make sure that our pay and remuneration remain attractive to our recruits. For the most ranks, compared with the general labor market, compared with the upper quartile pay and remuneration, that is the top 25%, we are equal or even higher than the top 25%. Even for entry rank levels, the pay and remuneration are attractive to them. And that can be reflected in the number of applications we have received. For example, for civilian grade such as EO, AO, and clerical officers, we have received 70% more applications than in the previous year. So I don't think we have there will not be a big impact in our ability to recruit. Promotion is important, but Chairman, I can tell you that stability of employment is even more important to many civil service, particularly when the economy is not doing well. Stability is the most important factor to many civil servants. Let me talk about the time taken to get promoted to the next rank, 14 years that is. Have you differentiated the case for senior civil service vis-a-vis junior civil service? Do you have breakdown figures? Yes, I have breakdown figures. But if I give you the figures, I'm afraid that you will be misled. For different grades, this is very different. For example, in the Marine Department, you cannot recruit any new civil servants. So in Marine Department, they have vacancies that cannot be filled. So, Chairman, I can give you some approximate figures. I think you are talking about the different bands in accordance with the pay scale, the average time taken to get promoted, so that you know what the 14-year rule, how the 14-year promotion time would apply to different grades. First, I want to talk about wastage, retirement, and resignation. According to the Secretary, the resignation is just 0.55 in the past, now 0.65. It's a record high, but it's not a very much difference, so it's acceptable. If we don't have a large number of retirees going to retire soon, then I will not be as concerned. But we are going to have an exodus, a big wave of retirement coming soon. So we are concerned about the stability of the civil service and also the retention of able civil servants and how we can pass on their expertise and experience. So, Secretary, can you tell us more about the causes of wastage, including resignation? Secondly, it takes more than 10 years to get a promotion. Some may think this is okay, others may think it takes too long. But if the civil servant is working hard and performing well, can they be promoted ahead of the other colleagues so as to encourage good performance and hard working? Chairman, on wastage, I can give you another perspective here.
In terms of natural wastage rate, in the past few years, the rate has been standing at quite a high level. As I have said, in the past 5 years, the establishment has grown by between 1 and 1.5%. Next year, 1.9%, increasing the establishment by 3,000 or so. So we do include a large number of new officers. In the year 2015-16, we recruited 12,000 more officers. But of course, not everybody is new to the service. Some of them have been re-employed, but still we are getting 10,000 new blood from the labor market. So all of them are in the probation period. Now, somebody may choose to leave the service owing to one reason or other. And in this way, it will sort of increase the wastage rate. As I have said, 63% of them left during the probation period. In other words, it would also boost the wastage rate. Every year, we have got more people who are on probation during the within the civil service. And then for those leaving during the probation period, I think it will have the least effect on our stability because they have just made a start. Now, usually we have a 2 to 3 years time for probation. Of course, we don't want to have to fill the vacancies, but relatively speaking, it is not that difficult. I think we have to watch out as to whether there is more wastage at the middle management ranks. That's the worst we want to see. That's the least we want to see. This is because they are at the peak of their capability. And for the training that we have given them, it is also the at the highest level. So if they do leave, our loss will be greatest. So if we see that there is a higher wastage rate for the middle-ranking officers in a particular grade, we will take the initiative to see whether we can better retain the staff, like more training, more resources, so as to better control the workload. Mr. Chairman, as to the second question that you asked, would you like to repeat your question? Yes, choosing the high flyers. Yes, we do have. Sometimes it is natural, sometimes it may not be. Just now I gave the figure 14 is an average figure. But then you can see that for high flyers, when it comes to the senior management ranks, it stands out more clearly. only 0.8% of the staff members are directorate grade staff members, and so the number of posts is small, and therefore if you jump from the rank of senior civil servants to directorate grade officers, the leap would be huge. So when we are talking about the MPS and then the directorate grade pay scale, I think we do choose the high flyers. For the junior ranks, the skills required would be quite general. Say, for example, those providing clerical support. Now, their experience would count most. As to the other supplementary skills, they will be supplementary in nature, and then we seldom sort of have to choose the high flyers. Fernando Cheung raised his hand, but at this moment he's not in the conference room. Any other questions from other members? Mr. Prince Xiu-ping. Thank you, Chair. If I may follow up, in paragraph 22 of your paper, you talked about the post-retirement service contract scheme, but you haven't given any specific figures. Last time I did ask as to how many took part, and then the figure was 457. In fact, I would like to know about the number of applicants wishing to join the scheme. Can the Bureau give us such a figure? Thank you, Chair. Mr. Poon. Are you talking about the number of applicants and how many of them have been turned down? Yes, and I want to know about the posts involved in the specific departments. I did ask for the information, but so far I haven't got the information. Chair, I'm not able to answer the question owing to a number of factors. I'll just see if my colleague has anything to add. Now, for the post-retirement service contract scheme, the approach of recruitment is slightly different. First of all, the candidates must be retired or existing civil servants. Therefore, it is selective. When it comes to individual departments, usually well in advance, they have already got certain preferred candidates. Say, for example, if I used to be in control of formula, if I would like to get somebody who would be put on such a contract scheme, then I would like to get somebody who has been working at the ports and who have the experience of stopping and searching. So we may not have an open recruitment exercise inviting all possible candidates. Rather, we will have a short list, and then we'll invite those on the list to apply for the jobs. Therefore, we may not have a total number as such. Still, we can try to get a figure, but then it may not be representative enough.
而家其實退休後服務合約計劃咧，相對嚟講，而家嘅
For the post-retirement service contract scheme, the number is not growing significantly, owing to two reasons. I have gave you the reasons before. Departments have to redeploy their own resources to come up with such a post. So if their resources are really tight, they may not want to do so. Such a scheme is getting more and more popular. We've started to ask departments to consider the following. That is, if they think that the post-retirement service contract scheme can help them to ease the burden, we can allow them to apply for more resources to implement this scheme. On the other hand, it is not easy to have a significant increase in the number of such a scheme members. This is because, and as Mr. Poon would know, he is asking us for the information. This is about the further employment scheme. Once this has been started, there will be a more regular and stable channel for staff members to stay on. So some departments and staff members are having a wait-and-see attitude. They want to know how the two schemes can tie in, can be coordinated. Fernando Cheung. Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of attending both meetings at the same time. For the figures presented in the paper, we learn about the picture about wastage and retirement. It appears to me that the wastage rates and the retirement rates are peaking. For the total wastage rate, it was as high as 9.4%, a record high in the past 15 years. In other words, over 1,000 officers left. For the Directorate grade staff members, again, it is the highest. Question for the Secretary. In the light of such a problem, have you studied the matter? Now you have given other reasons as one of the reasons for departure. To us, civil servants are having the best because in terms of their employment conditions in relation to their pension, which provides a safeguard to them, I'm sure when you compare with the conditions prevailing in the public sector as well as the private sector, civil servants are given a better package. So how come that you still have such a high wastage rate? And for the non-civil service contract staff, I think their employment terms are even worse, so I would foresee an even higher wastage rate. I think you need to maintain a stable civil service and rely on the civil servants as a force to run the government. And it is indeed important to make sure that it is stable. So do you have any ideas, do you have any policies to address the serious problem of wastage among civil servants? I would foresee that it is even worse in the case of the non-civil service contract staff members. Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Dr. Cheung, for giving me this opportunity to clarify. Dr. Cheung asked me about the wastage rate for the directorate level, and whether we've foreseen it and whether we're doing anything to address the problem. Yes, indeed, we've foreseen the higher wastage rate. We have anticipated it, and we can certainly tell you that this is going to happen because many of them are reaching the retirement age. So it is a natural wastage. The worst year was 2012-2013 when we had 149 officers at directorate level leaving. In the year 2015-16, there were 141. For the years 2010 to 2015-16, for those reaching their normal retirement age, last year it was 90%, the lowest was 84%. So out of the 141 who retired, 127 reached the normal retirement age. Only 5 resigned. So 3.5% only out of the 141. And 0.37% of the total strength of civil service. So I won't say that this is a sort of alarming picture. I have been saying that we have been responding to this scenario. Now, men can't get younger, so we know full well about such a scenario and know full well in which departments they are serving. So sometimes we know that a certain department has a unsatisfactory sort of scenario, and twice a year we will be reviewing the picture and we'll look at the succession planning of such a department. We'll try to look at their plans, and then we'll see whether the training given and also in terms of post deployment, whether we are able to make things better. Chair, if I may also take up the question about NCSC staff members. Dr. Cheung, I can boldly say, though I don't have the exact figure, the wastage rate isn't really high. Had it been high, then I won't have to come here every year to tell you as to why somebody has been with us for 5 years, 10 years, and still they're not able to get a civil service post. Last time we said that 3,000 NCSC staff members have been with us for 5 years. But then we do want them to be grouped under wastage. Not that they resign, but that they have successfully been recruited into the civil service. So unless there are some outstanding examples, I don't think that we have problems with wastage. For the paper given to us, it is said that the wastage rate was 0.65% for the year 2015-16. So if I read it together with Annex E, it means that it is a record high, unless I have got it wrong. From year 2001 to 2015-16, I think the vaccination rate this year has been at a historic high.
Well, it's high. Let me give you the figure. 1056. We have 180,000 civil servants. We are recruiting 12,000 every year. 1,056, and among them, 665 left while on probation. Every year, due to natural wastage, we are recruiting more and more new blood. And during the probation period, the wastage rate tends to be high. We recruit more people, 12,000 every year. Therefore, the number of new civil servants leaving will be high. So I'm not surprised by the higher figure. But as we set out in the paper, those who decline, the offer only accounts for 14% of the total. Of course, we cannot control the people who found themselves not suitable after assuming employment, and they left, and they will leave during the probation period. Maybe it is due to their expectations or the nature of work, or they may have better opportunities elsewhere, leading to the wastage. We monitor the figures, but at this stage, I'm not alarmed. Please, Secretary, please tell us figures on the wastage rate of NCSC staff. Yes, I'll give you two figures. Wastage rate and the number of NCSC staff transferring to the civil service. So I would like to give you both sets of figures, because for the latter one is something we are pleased about. Well, you have given us the impression that you are not worried. You are very assured. We are going to have a new wave of retirement. We've seen a rising rate of vaccination, and also for those over the age of 40, this age group accounts for 2/3 of the total establishment. So we are a bit concerned about the continuity, but you seem to be too assured. Can you find ways to do an even better job? And Dr. Fernando Zhang has made a point about NCSC staff. With those with 5 years or more of experience, there are more than 4,000, but they are only getting recruited as civil servants at a rate of a few hundred. Have there been any laying off? And we have received reports that a few hundred have been laid off, and those were experienced staff. And it said that for the new recruits, they may be attracted to work for other employers. Although the number may not be high, it's not a big number, but that they are most needed as new entrants, new blood. If we say that it's normal, people leaving while on probation is normal, I would say this is not prudent enough. Now let me address the point about prudence, the last point, whether someone would apply for a post in the civil service, or the employment conditions will be most important. As I've said, the number of applicants trying to join the civil service have been reaching record high levels. So our terms are attractive, otherwise they wouldn't have applied. Second, well, I'm not concerned that they are leaving after joining the civil service for a short time. For example, in paragraph 16, we set out the figure 14% declining our offer of employment. 70% of them would go to the private sector, and 44% would remain in the original civil service jobs. Would you say that 7% is a low figure? Of course, I would like to see that no civil servants would switch jobs to work in the private sector. But that doesn't mean that the private sector is more attractive than the civil service. We have to look at the overall wastage rate. If you have a corporation with a wastage rate as low as 1%, it's difficult to find any corporation with such a wastage rate. Of course, we need to make improvements. For example, the difference in the terms and conditions of employment for officers recruited before and after the year 2000. That's something we need to handle in terms of personnel management. But I don't think we are not attractive enough for new blood. Well, you say I'm a bit assured or complacent. I'm not complacent. I'm responsible for managing the civil service. If I act in a panicky way, my team will be alarmed, will be worried, and I don't think I should do that. I have worked in the front line for the past 10 odd years. Well, the young recruits have the highest fighting spirit because they are young and they want to get promotion. Some 85% of the new recruits are under the age of 35 or 39. So it's good to have them joining the civil service. They are the new blood. They will rejuvenate the service, and they have new thinking, and they are more ready to accept changes. And let me finish, Chairman. I think these new recruits, the new blood, is what we need. The question is, can we train them properly after they've joined the civil service so that at some point they can progress and take over? Secretary, I think it's important to instill a sense of belonging. Training is therefore very important. You should work on building a sense of belonging. I have participated in activities of civil service unions. They have a strong sense of succession planning. So I believe fostering a sense of belonging is good at retention. Yes, we have set out information in the paper on the incentives, schemes, and measures that we have adopted. Last Friday, I attended an activity, attended a function, or I went to the AFCD. One of the subjects that we discussed was the vacancies they have in the department, mainly in the grades of workmen, artisans, or gardening grades. And we are trying to introduce certain measures within the existing framework to reduce the vacancy rate. And by this, we can improve the working conditions, the workflow of junior grades. When I visit a department, I would talk to their directorate officers for at least half an hour. I believe this is something we need to promote as a culture. If the frontline officers know and understand that the senior management want to take care of them, that would be good for retaining people. With more civil servants going to retire, to ensure that there will be proper succession, well, the government did promise at one point that more professional training and development programs will be offered to civil service. I would like to know how effective these measures have been. We haven't heard much from the government so far, so please tell us how effective they are. And do you have regular reviews of performance of civil service so as to ensure proper handing over to the next generation? We have another paper on this very subject of training. There are two things. Centrally, we will organize some training programs. Usually they are in relation to management and management competency. We would invest in programs run by outside institutions for our officers. We have invested, I think, I can't remember the exact figure. I think it was roughly $1 billion in the civil service, and that is the investment by the CSB and other departments. And on the question of effectiveness, I think there are two indicators. First, whether the training is popular or not. Are there many applicants wishing to participate in those programs? We don't direct officers to join for local short-term training programs which are convenient to participants. The participation rates have been high. According to their feedback, of the feedback of the participants, the response has been very good. And we also pay visit to the venues to see if they are actively involved, and usually they are. Secondly, there are programs, there are issues about succession planning. If there are vacancies left unfilled, and there are problems. But that's not a problem we find in most departments. In the coming 5 years, when I answered Dr. Fernando Jones' questions, I already said that we already know the succession situation for the different departments in the coming 5 years. We have got a list of potential successors for most departments, and then we can offer training opportunities for those on the list. I cannot say that I'm 100% sure that things would work out fine, but I would say the current situation is acceptable. Further question? If not, then I think that's all for this particular item. Next, we have moved on to the next item, number 4, employment of ethnic minorities in the civil service. It's CB 4991 1617 and bracket 05. Well, we always want to promote equal opportunities. We would recruit people on equal basis. We would look at the integrity, ability, as well as taking into account the job requirements. If we would also pay regard to the entry requirements, including the language proficiency requirements such as bilingualism, triliteracy. Racial factor is not a consideration. We have set out the latest situation in relation to employment of ethnic minorities in the civil service in the paper, and the number in a moment I can say some brief members in more detail on two-pronged approach to facilitate the ethnic minorities joining the civil service. First, we'll look at the Chinese language requirements in the job requirements. We understand that the Chinese language proficiency requirement is one of the major hurdles of ethnic minorities joining the civil service, and they may be suitable in all other respects other than Chinese language proficiency. Some 31 grades have successfully lowered or removed requirements for Chinese written proficiency. Last year, there was a briefing given to the panel. At that time, only 22 grades did this. Now, since after a year, 31 grades have lowered their requirements for Chinese proficiency as set out in paragraph 4.
This is because last year we started to take our initiative to do specific work. What it means is that we've watched that there are certain grades that require less written communication, or written communication in a single language would also suffice. I'm sure members would also tell us that you are more concerned about the following, that is the disadvantaged groups. Therefore, we try to focus at the frontline surface. We'll try to see whether there's room for adjustment in relation to the written Chinese LPRs. So eventually we have got 31 grades. I can cite a few successful examples, like the supplies attendant grade or the artisan grade for the FSD as well as the AFCD. So you find the details in paragraphs 5 and 6. I talked about a two-pronged approach, and what is even more important and more fundamental is as follows. That is, we should try to explore room for ethnic minorities to realize their potential. In other words, we hope that they can make use of their own background to help us. We want to have EMs who are proficient in their own EM languages and who have knowledge about their own culture, so as to provide more suitable public service to the EMs. Say, for example, for the SWD, we have the following posts. There is welfare support and liaison art assistance. And then we have also got interpreters called proficient in specified ethnic minority languages. They have been employed by the Immigration Department. And then for the Labor Department, we'll continue to have it as a trial scheme. That is, we engage employment assistants who are proficient in EM languages to work at the job centers. And then for the disciplinary services, I think they have performed much better. And for the FSD, they have started, and we believe that they're able to identify suitable EMs to join their force. I'm sure this is a good sign. In the future, we'll continue to liaise with departments who will come to more contact with the EMs so that they can find ways and opportunities to allow the EMs to make use of talents. In paragraphs 9 and 10, we have also told you about the activities that we've carried out. I always visit the youth centers, the elderly centers. Whenever I visit the districts, I will also try to visit welfare organizations that serve the EMs. I'm glad to see that the government has been very tolerant, and we have been covering different kinds of views. We have been very inclusive. Mr. Chairman, I would like to pause here, and I welcome questions from members. 6 members have raised their hands: Eunice Young, Pun Xiu-ping, Jeremy Tam, Au Chong-sing, Fernando Zhang, and Alice Mack. So 5 minutes each, covering both the question and the answer. Ms. Young, in relation to the recruitment of EMs as civil servants, I believe that it will be a very good direction for their career development. According to the statistics, there were 71 and 47 respectively in the police force as well as the correctional services department, accounting for less than 1%. In year 2013, for the Yau Chin Mong district office, they have a particular project so as to provide Chinese language classes and activities to members of the JPC. Would you like to expand such a scheme so as to provide more courses to the EMs so that they can raise their Chinese proficiency so that they can get recruited by the disciplinary services? And then for freelance interpreters, according to the paper, when you talk about tapping the talent pool of EMs, you refer to the police force, social welfare department, home affairs department, immigration department, and labor department. You have said that you are trying to make use of their EM language proficiency. I want to know whether they are freelance interpreters or whether they're serving civil servants. And I want to know whether the conditions are attractive enough for them to remain in the service or whether they will attract others to join the civil service. Thank you, Ms. Young, for your 2 questions. I think to me, the police force has been performing best in this regard. For the other department, yes, I admit that it has been lower. But then in the past couple of years, I think the progress has been amazing. Figures for the past 7 years. In 2010-11, for those newly recruited to the police in that year, 3 applied, 1 succeeded. The percentage looked good, but in fact the outcome wasn't that good. In 2015-16, 67 applied, 11 were recruited. And then for 2016-17, 55 applied, 18 were employed. In relation to their recruitment rate, it is much higher than other grades. In 2016-17, if you would like to join the police force as an EM, your successful rate would be 33%. For the general rate across the board, it's only 11%. Of course, I'm not being complacent because the absolute number of applicants is still on the low side. I think recently you must have read in the papers, I think we have got to very good examples for us to sort of share the story with you. For the first time, we have an EM being recruited as an inspector. He was promoted to become an inspector, and then there was another police constable who made use of his language ability to sort of help a Nepalese worker who was attempting suicide, and the story was given international attention as well. For such officers, if you ask me, in relation to the project in Yau Chu Mong district, that would continue, but then that's not the only approach. The police has got different ways to carry this out. Basically, the police is having a sort of very personal touch. For the 55 candidates who applied last year, for those who failed, the police would try to have personal assistance for them. They try to help them with interview skills. They try to help them with enhancing their Chinese proficiency. This is because for this group of applicants, that they have the desire to become a police officer, so we'd like to help them. And then we've arranged for visits, experience sharing session by other police colleagues. Ms. Yong, please remember that when we get more and more EMs in the police force, they will play an exemplary role. For me to go out to talk about my work to the EMs, it may not be convincing, but it will be very convincing for an EM police officer to pass the same message to his colleagues. Another question was about interpreters. Well, as far as my bureau is concerned, our interpreters are responsible for interpretation between Chinese and English. We are trying to tap into the potential of the interpreters. I think recently the Immigration Department recruited 9 interpreters in relation to extension of stay or overstaying of the visas of the visitors. We are really able to benefit from their language abilities. We hope that the departments can make greater use of such an arrangement. And so how many of them are NCSC officers? Well, it all depends on the job nature. For overstayers, torture claimants, well, we hope that such will be a temporary problem, and therefore the interpreters have been employed as temporary staff members. If you're interested in the pay conditions, I can give you the information later. But then for other areas like the Labor Department as well as the Home Affairs Bureau or Home Affairs Department, if we believe that there is a long-term demand for the service and if it is popular with the community, we will ask the departments to convert it into a permanent post. Thank you. Next, Mr. Pun Xiuping. Well, of course, the government is the largest employer. It is also the largest service provider. For us to employ EMs as civil servants, yes, we have them in different departments, like the police force, HAD, CSD, HD, etc. Now, let me follow up on paragraph 8 of your paper. It is said that the CSB would continue to liaise with the other bureaus and departments whose services have interfaced with EMs to identify room for trolling suitable candidates who possess foreign language skills, etc. Do you have a target figure? And what about the number of existing staff members who are EMs among the team of 180,000? I attended the meetings of our subcommittee on the welfare or interests of the EMs. Well, we have been told that the service given to the EMs is highly inadequate. Yes, for the housing department, they may have 2 EMs. I don't know whether they are security guards or not. We try to ask more about the 2 posts, but we have simply been told that they serve the EMs. So Secretary, are you going to set up a support department, a centralized support department? On the one hand, will you have referrals for the jobs? On the other hand, referral of service. On the other hand, you can increase the number of jobs for the EMs. Secretary. Mr. Chairman, 2 questions here. Well, first of all, if we have to find out how many EMs we have in the civil service, this is difficult. This is because we cannot mandate the disclosure of such information to us by our colleagues. At various stages of time, we attempted to have a survey, but then the response rate was low. Well, I think last time when this was done, it was 15% only, if you recall. And we cannot verify it even when we have the outcome. So we can carry out a survey, but I just doubt the representativeness or the accuracy of the findings. As to why the CSD, why the police have their figures, well, they have job interviews, and then based on observation, among other things, they're able to find out about it. So that has been discovered in the course of recruitment. But if you ask me to survey our own colleagues, I believe that it will be difficult. Mr. Poon, in your question, you asked me whether we should formulate a target. Well, first of all, we don't know how many we have already got. And then do we think that by setting a quota we can resolve the problem? Is it really the case? On this matter and on other matters like the employment of disabled or people with disabilities, I think we need to think carefully as to what is the best way to help this group of people. I just doubt very much whether this is going to solve the problem. Now, Chair, allow me a little bit more time. I've said that we have got a 2-pronged approach. We'd like to have both the pull and push factors. In other words, we have to take the initiative. Chair, it will be easy for me to impose a quota of 2% on each and every department, irrespective of the arrangements. So we need to take the initiative. We have to find out who we would like to help. If we are talking about the EMs, then I think many of them have a lower educational standard. So we should be aiming at the junior posts. And then for the posts with the highest vacancy rate, they're exactly the kind of jobs involved, like worker 1, worker 2, drivers, etc. There are plenty of openings in the private sector. So we have to facilitate the recruitment, and then we can achieve 2 purposes. If we can waive the Chinese written proficiency, perhaps many more can get the job. And then many of them who are in the grassroots strata can then get a job. That's the first point. The second point is about the pull factor. In other words, we have to help departments, we have to enlighten the departments. That is, which post should be held by EM candidates.
And then they would recruit without people asking them. I don't need to do anything to urge the police, and they have done this. Because they need people to maintain law and order. So all the projects to help EMs have been formulated on that basis. Can you help me doing this? Certainly. Can we better support ethnic minorities? Mr. Poon suggests that we set up a separate department. Well, that's not entirely within my portfolio. What we can do, what my bureau can do, is to look at the resource allocation and help the departments to do this, to do the requirement. And we can also share the experience of successful stories. And we also know the difficulties faced by different departments. And we can help these departments to do a better job and improve. I was going to ask the same question that Mr. Poon. It's difficult to discuss anything without the data or figures. I could not find, after reading the paper, I could not find the figures which we all supposed to be should be there. And if we look at the electrical background brief, that is 991-1670-06, it's in paragraph 3. The questionnaire survey, at least those respondents indicate that 470 belong to that category. So that's the figure we can use to start the discussion. If not, I'm not an EM. Of course, I won't fill in the questionnaire and return it to you. So I believe the figure is objective and it should be rather accurate. If the questionnaire is about something that I'm not related to, of course I won't return it. So I would say that 15% is already a very accurate reflection of the situation. And in paragraph 4, if one is an ethnic minority, are you going to revise the certain job requirements? And if you do that for a certain officer, you know that that officer is an ethnic minority. So you should be able to give us very accurate information. Maybe it's difficult in the past, but at least from now on, you can establish the statistical database. I certainly hope that the CSB will continue to help the departments, and you ask the department heads and the secretaries to consider how they can better help ethnic minorities, because these minorities are indigenous Hong Kong people. Some have been in Hong Kong for 3 generations. But compared with some Chinese people who may just have come to Hong Kong recently, or their fathers came to Hong Kong not so long ago. So I hope you would continue the good work. You may not have the database. Can you promise to start the collection of accurate data? Well, Deputy Secretary, you are really smart. I said it cannot be done for incumbent civil servants. They may not want to return the questionnaire. Maybe he or she is not an ethnic minority, or he's just busy. But how can you differentiate people of Chinese ethnicity and those who are not? Well, we have 31 grades where the language proficiency requirements have been lowered, and I can try to find some figures in respect of these grades, but this is not going to be retrospective. Let's see how we can do this. So I can at least cover these 31 grades to see how the efforts have achieved. But there are grades. They have created a post for ethnic minorities. So those figures will certainly be accurate. And I don't think the HAD will recruit non-ethnic minorities to help them promote racial harmony. So next year, maybe in our paper, we can try to inform members about the number of people that we have been able to recruit since the lowering of the Chinese language proficiency requirements. Well, you know that if I can speak a certain minority language, I can also apply for the job with the requirement to speak a certain language. Otherwise, it's not equal opportunities. If I'm not allowed to apply, it's not equal opportunity. So we can certainly try to find out how helpful these measures have been. Mr. Wilson, I'm glad to learn from the paper that the government has been working very hard to recruit more ethnic minorities to help to serve the public. And I want to, in particular, appreciate the good work of the police in doing this. In my constituency, in Sao Mau Ping Police District, because of the integration policy, there are South Asians in all the 18 districts, and with a South Asian police officer there, who has been getting in touch with South Asian population in the district. So they have been, the police have been able to promote good policing in the district through such reaching out efforts. And the secretary has talked about this push and pull effort. But so far, this approach has not been adopted by other government departments. So, Mr. Zhang, how can you make sure that this push and pull approach is adopted across the government by all the departments? And also, I would like the Secretary to tell us more about what other departments have been doing, especially those departments which are offering frontline services to the public. So what more will be done by the Secretary to promote recruitment of ethnic minorities? That's what I want to know. Well, you compliment the work of the police. Well, that's the push aspect. They wouldn't have done so much if they didn't realize that they have such operational needs. Of course, I also give recognition to their good work. But the important thing is that they understand what their operational needs are, and that's why they have the incentive to do more. I've talked to the police commissioner and other heads of discipline services. Employment of ethnic minorities can be very meaningful, although in absolute numbers there are not many. You know, for the junior police corps, there are some special activities for ethnic minorities. When a young person, from the ethnic minority groups, if he wants to join the police force, at least he would not commit crime. He will not become a criminal. So that's already something that we can achieve. And also, how can we improve the pool aspect? Well, I've been in my job for 2 years. I started to look into this last year, and the implementation started in 2016. And I have cited 2 successful cases, artisan and workman grades. How many such officers can be recruited? I don't know, but I believe some results can be achieved. Some better results can be achieved through lowering the Chinese language proficiency. And also for immigration department, they can recruit NCSC staff. Mr. O asked me how to do more. Well, I by myself would not be sufficiently talented enough, or I don't have all the expertise, and members here should try to raise the relevant issues and give us your input on various occasions, including the panel meetings. Last time I was asked to conduct a census survey. I don't know how effective that can be too. We will try to offer as many posts which required language skills of ethnic minorities as possible to these people. So that would be what I want the departments to do. Dr. Fernando Zhang, we are talking about ethnic minorities. We are not talking about non-Chinese speaking people or non-Chinese speaking people. Some of them are in the police. They are not non-Chinese. They are not Chinese. Some are white people. They came from the UK. We're not talking about these people. We are mainly talking about South Asians. And secondly, I want to give due recognition to the Secretary's effort in implementing new policies in the last couple of years, and we have achieved some breakthrough. Some 31 grades have introduced lower language proficiency requires, and that is the language requirement would be in the form of either Chinese or English proficiency. But if there's no figure, then it's difficult to say whether we have a substantial number of ethnic minorities in the civil service. You know, some of the posts would involve more frequent contact with ethnic minorities. Have these grades staffed by a suitable number of ethnic minorities so as to provide better service to these minority groups? I don't query the figures of recruitment figures. I don't query the recruitment figures in some programs. But if we don't have the overall picture, we cannot say that the government has been doing a good job. We cannot just look at a few trees which are going well, and then we are satisfied that the forest is in a good condition. We need to get the full set of figures. So my question for the Secretary is, what have prevented us from getting all the figures we need? Is it because of law?
認為唔能夠
Or is there a major policy consideration that prevents you from getting the figures concerning the number of EMs among the civil servants? If you haven't got a figure for us, that means we just see trees but not the wood. All the time, you've only been relying on a few outstanding examples in publicizing your policy. Yes, I agree that you are sort of laying down the groundwork, but at least we need to know about the sort of actual figure. So why don't you carry out a survey so that we can examine among the different departments as to the distribution of EMs among the civil servants? Secretary, Dr. Zhang, let me say that I agree with the first point that you made. EMs are different from NECs, non-ethnic Chinese. surveys have been carried out in the past. We don't mind doing it again, but then there is a problem. First of all, we can't force everybody to fill out the questionnaire, and then unless I demand the production of their passports, or they are the second generation or third generation of EMs living in Hong Kong. Dr. Cheung, the response rate has only been 15%, and then 2% of those who responded claimed themselves to be EMs. At that time, the way we interpreted the outcome was that is in line with the 2% of EMs in the total labor force. But then some members have disagreed with us. So irrespective of the figure that will be arrived at, Dr. Cheung, it may not be an accurate figure. It depends on the perspective that you adopt in interpreting the figure. And therefore, I've been citing specific examples, but it doesn't mean that we are losing sight of the wood. I want you to have some figures that would not be open to different interpretation. Dr. Cheung, I really hope that the figures will increase. Like in the case of workers, artisans and drivers, the government has a shortage of such post holders. If we adjust the written Chinese requirements, then the picture will be changed. And I'm sure you know which posts will be amenable to the EMs. So if you ask me to carry out the survey, yes, the survey can be conducted once again. Well, usually we'll do it closer to a census or by census, because we do want to compare the findings with those from a census. If you insist, I can do it, but I can be frank with you. Dr. Cheung, now, if the number of EMs are high within the civil service, then we have no need to lower the Chinese proficiency requirements, because if an EM is very proficient in terms of the written Chinese language, I'm sure he can easily get a job. Mr. Chairman, my question was, is there any piece of legislation preventing you from getting an accurate figure? You've said that you can't mandate it on the civil servants as well as the NCSC staff members. You're saying that you can't mandate the production of such information. Why not? Well, I think it is a simple matter. It is personal data. How can we impose it on our colleagues and tell us the answer, and how am I going to verify it? Does it mean that everybody has to fill out the form and come back with the ancestral history? I think we can, but we cannot mandate it. Of course, it's a matter of self-declaration. I think the purpose is clear. This is to safeguard the job, the employment of EMs, as well as promoting it. So it's not a matter of exposing their personal data. So it's for public interest, public good. Dr. Cheung, yes, I can try our best to do it. We can encourage our colleagues to give us the information. As I have said, the response rate was only 15%. So you may say that all the remaining 85% that haven't returned the return must be non-EMs. But you may disagree with our interpretation. When we carry out a survey, all we can do is to encourage the response rate. And there's no way to tell whether the information is accurate unless I get everybody to come forward and try to take a look of the skin color. But if I resort to such a practice, we will certainly be taken to court. SMAC, as a colleague has said, we do have a subcommittee on EMs. I think the greatest problem is that among all the departments and bureaus, They have no idea about the number of EMs that they are serving. This is true for the hospital authority, labor department, etc. When we ask how many of your clients are EMs, they have no figures. As the secretary has said, you can't impose it on anybody. I mentioned this point last time. I think it is high time for us to do something about it. We want to get the figures so as to tell the degree of the seriousness of the problem. We are in the field of trade unions. We want to know how many civil servants are EMs. We want to know how many have applied for a job and how many of them have got a job. Then we can tell whether the recruitment is difficult. I think the problem is whether it is that they want to get a job but they can't get it. And then, just like in the case of the hospital authority, we want to know about the nature of the problem, and then we can tell what service can be provided. So we need the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau because they have this duty to make sure that the rights and interests of everybody, irrespective of their ethnicity, will be protected. So it's a matter of approaching that bureau and finding ways to collect information about the EMs. So perhaps the subcommittee should have a discussion about the policy direction, and I hope that the SCS will assist. I understand that instead of 20 grades, today 31 grades have already waived the Chinese language proficiency requirement, in particular the written communication ability. But then for paragraph 8, we talk about the interpreters in the departments. In fact, we very much want that every department will be getting more interpreters, and it should not be confined to the immigration department, like the SWD, housing department, as well as the Home Affairs Department. They want to use public service. They are not trying to get a civil service job. And as a result of inability to get public service, they are not able to integrate into the society. Secretary, for such departments and bureaus, I think we need EM interpreters as well. Now, of course, the secretary has said that it is hoped that in the long term they will switch from part-time into permanent staff. As long as they are part-timers, their pay will be low. For court interpreters, they are only paid $200 per hour. So for EM interpreters, they are all university graduates, but you're only paying them $200 an hour. For interpreters who interpret between Chinese and English, then they get a higher pay, several times higher than the EM interpreters. Now, for those who are EM interpreters, I'm sure they must have attained a certain educational standard, and it's only part-time in nature, just $200 an hour. So the supply will not be stable. So if you let them have a post in the departments, then it means that we have a more regular and stable supply of interpreters for the benefit of the public. Let me answer the question and supplement to the question asked by Dr. Zhang. For us to find out how many of our civil servants are ethnic minorities, of course, we can carry out a survey. And I hope that gradually we can adjust the Chinese LPRs whenever necessary. It will be easier for us to make an observation. 31 grades. Don't belittle the number of 31 grades because some grades have a very strong team. So if we expand the number of grades, then it can supplement our surveys, which are sort of full of shortfalls. So I think this is one way to go about it. Another question is about the demand for service. I think we need the help of the lawmakers. What we can do is to encourage and remind departments under us. But then I don't think this is adequate, and I hope that members can help us. If you find that there is a need for service for the EMs, then please help us. And then for the NCSC staff members, Ms. Mack, when somebody is a NCSC member, first of all, we want to know about the need for such a post. If it is being needed for a few years, then department has to justify why it is not needed on a long-term basis. If it is needed on a long-term basis, then the department should get resources to convert it into a permanent civil service post. But of course, we may not already have such a post. We may need to create the rank and the grade, etc. But then as soon as they have made a start, and when they have started it, and when it is proved that there is a public demand for it, then it is a matter of time as to when the post will be converted from NCSC into permanent post. So it is a matter of making a breakthrough. Now you talk about NCSC employment terms. Ms. Mack said that it is not satisfactory. Allow me to say frankly or boldly, it all depends on whether we have got the candidates of the right caliber in the labor market. So if we have got such candidates, and if the service terms and conditions are acceptable, then I'm afraid perhaps at this stage of time there isn't much that we can do.
Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, I have heard from the Secretary well, I know Mr. Cheung is very good at giving long and elaborate response, and after changing the concepts from one point to another, we started to lose track of what we're talking about. You want people to fill in the questionnaire, 15% of them responded, and you said that 20% are EMs, and that's not very accurate. Understood. So what can you improve? What can you do to improve it? You can't tell us anything. When the government want to get money from us, they will give us a 30-year projection, such as express rail link, as if the world will remain unchanged in that period. When you want to seek funding approval, you will do that. What's the purpose of the 30-year projection? How can that be meaningful? When we ask you to give us something, you say that it's not accurate. It may only give you a distorted picture, and let's not bother with it. What about the projection you give us? When you want to seek funding approval from us, can you continue to do it? Please do it. Don't say it's not accurate. And then you can fine-tune as you move along. You may find different percentages in different surveys. And now you're not going to do it. You can make comparisons from the changes in figures. Well, if the thermometer didn't work for one occasion, would you throw it away? And then you're not going to use a thermometer anymore? We need to have rules and data. You must give us something that is satisfactory. And you are also saying that, well, there's a fire, but it's not my job. Well, you should tell the CS for A and the FS. They are there to coordinate things. When Mrs. Carrie Lam and Mr. John Zhang told us that they were respectively responsible for certain bureaus. If you cannot do it, you can tell the two directors, two policy, the two senior officials, what's the use of the early prayer mornings? The problem with ethnic minorities is a simple one. We don't know how they're doing. In the departments providing public service, can we have interpreters? How many do we need? You have the figures. If you don't have the figures, how can you work out a solution? For example, for the HA hospitals, if there's no interpreter, how can you provide a service? There was a person who fell and got injured, and he waited for six hours, and it said that the interpreter should come after 6 hours because that would be the time when the doctor will attend to the patient. So how can the doctor communicate with the patient? So you should have the interpreter waiting at the same time, even if it's 6 hours. In Hong Kong, when you go to see a doctor, what you get is just seeing the doctor. The doctor will just look at the TV monitor screen. What's your name? Taman Ho? No, Leung Kok Hong. And the ethnic minority person would not know whether the medicine prescribed were actually what the doctors said them to be. If it's something that you have done, you should try to make improvements. Don't say it's useless and you don't want to do it anymore. I don't know who will be the next CS4A or FS. I'll tell them if you don't do it. Well, the CMAB caused so many troubles because they lost the computers, the laptop computers. You should do what your responsibility lies. We are here to monitor you. If we are wrong in our criticism, we'll apologize to you. Mr. Leung, you may have missed something. It's not the other way around. When I answered the questions raised by Dr. Fernando Cheung, I didn't say that I wouldn't do it. I said I would do two things. Maybe it's time to listen to the recordings. Mr. Leung, well, when you want to promote the constitutional reform package, you ran commercial advertisement. We said you shouldn't do that. And what you should do more for ethnic minorities. First of all, for the record, I must say that I'm not against doing more the census or the surveys. I'm going to do that. Secondly, after relaxing the Chinese written proficiency requirements for certain grades, we are going to collect data, which will be concrete data. And I have not said that a survey would be useless. A survey of that nature is useless. I was saying that I am not sure about the response rate, and different responses may give rise to different interpretations. And you should teach them. They are going to do something in conjunction with the population census. Dr. Fernando Cheung, for the second round, 4 minutes. Two things. The secretary said he would consider converting posts which are needed for the long term into the permanent posts, so that there will be opportunities for ethnic minorities. Many communication organizations have asked for this. Look at the Labor Department, which helps people to get jobs. At present, there's no job officer post which works in the no employment officers working in the job center is an ethnic minority. You know, these people are there for an internship of 6 months after finishing the Yijin course, and they are not really able to help ethnic minorities to get jobs. Of course, the policy falls under the Labor Department or the Labor and Welfare Bureau. But the jobs will be needed for the long term. Would you help them convert these posts? Secondly, for the civil service, including NCSC staff, would you help them to report back to you the information on ethnicity, not a census, not a survey, but would you require this as some of the basic data for the purpose of promoting employment of ethnic minorities in the civil service? Can that be done? 2 questions. There's a pilot project in the Labor Department, as Dr. Cheung has said. It's renewed every 6 months. These are so-called ethnic minority young people act as ambassadors for 6 months. They may not be able to offer a lot of help to job seekers, but such placements would help the ethnic minorities themselves. And I'm going to follow up the matter with the Labor Department. Yes, and I want them to do it with more efforts. And the Immigration Department as well. Last year they started to recruit interpreters. I will tell them when I have the opportunity to speak to them. And I have said that if members want to promote this in other areas, you can do so. And it's something that I can help. I will certainly do my part. As for the second question, whether we can encourage or advise civil servants to report their racial background, I can consider this. But I have to consider things such as, what if a civil servant refuses to comply? Should I punish him? And how? Perhaps I can review what we have done to see whether we can gather more information. Next time when we issue a questionnaire, maybe there should be more direct questions so that the information returned to us will be more accurate. Of course, Secretary, I don't want you to punish these people. When they join the civil service, you collect a lot of information, gender, and place of origin. And if you ask for more after they have joined the civil service, they may not want to give it to you. But I'm talking about something for the public good. And these Labor Department ambassadors, none of them will be employed by the Labor Department after acting as an ambassador for 6 months. They were recruited by other employers, and none of them was employed by the Labor Department. So there should be some posts for them in the Labor Department. First of all, I will follow up the matter with the Labor Department after the meeting. Secondly, we have explored different ways and means to do it, to encourage more people to fill in the questionnaire. I considered asking the civil servants to tell us whether they can speak other languages. If I can speak a minority language, it would be better for more. That would be a factor to facilitate deployment. We have considered questions like that. We may consider doing this in the next survey. Do we want them to report their place of origin?
反映到嗰個族裔個情況。
And you ask them to fill in information on place of origin? Well, nationality, yes, but nothing on the race. Well, there may be an Englishman whose family has been in Hong Kong for 3 generations. We did consider whether they should be asked about whether they speak languages other than Chinese and English. Maybe that would tell us or inform us about the ethnicity.
I think the message is clear. We want to exhaust all means so as to get the information for the sake of comparison. I think what you said was right. That is, the father comes from a particular country while the mother comes from another country, and then a few generations down the road, what sort of ethnicity would you say you possess? Well, I think time is up. So item 5, AOB. Anything under AOB? If not, then meeting adjourned. Thank you.